Art the Clown now sits among the top 4 most iconic horror villains of all time, and while you can definitely make the argument for multiple other villains, Art is doing something with this current aura and charisma about him that we truly haven't seen since the 90s. This character is taking the world by storm and he absolutely deserves it. In this video, I'm going to be talking about Art's current run over the past few years, why I believe he's earned this Mount Rushmore spot, and then I'm going to go into a little review on Terrifier 3, the things I loved about it, as well as some parts I'm still a bit confused with, and a special shout out to y'all in the community that voted for this. And then to end off the video, I'll be going into my thoughts for a potential sequel or two in the years to come. But let's begin by talking about what is the absolute most important aspect when you're trying to get something to catch on to a bigger audience, that being marketing. Online discourse has altered the definition of many phrases over the years, but the damage done to the term industry plant has to be studied. And don't get me wrong, industry plants definitely exist, not sure in horror movies, but genuinely good marketing does not mean you're an industry plant. Word of mouth and curiosity are the biggest factors when it comes to something gaining traction in this era, and you can't call something an industry plant if no industries are promoting it and people are just talking about it. That's literally the opposite of an industry plant. Like, the shock factor that this franchise is now known for is obviously by design. It creates buzz. It's what you can't or shouldn't see. It's kind of like Mortal Kombat over the years, especially when Mortal Kombat was created. Art is sadistically cruel. He's so cruel to the point where it's absurd and it's kind of hilarious. It's like it's become a dare to watch the Terrifier movies. And that type of word of mouth spreads very quickly online, especially with people posting the clips of the movies, and it makes it so that even if you don't want to watch the movie, you're probably gonna see part of it somewhere. But even the Terrifier franchise isn't gonna be introducing any new tactics when it comes to the marketing, especially the reports of people walking out of theaters, which upon researching, a lot of these reports were exaggerated, and this Reddit thread here provides some more information on what happened. Again, standard popular horror movie marketing, but I also want to take the director's word for it when he did say that people threw up and walked out of the movie, but y'all know this is pretty much classic horror movie stuff. But genuinely, aside from Megan, I can't tell you the last time I saw a horror movie villain everywhere the way that Art is right now. I mean, you have Art following the popcorn buckets trend, David Howard Thornton dressing up and going into Spencer's and Spirit Halloween for videos. You have Art starring in his very own music video that kind of functions as a little short film in itself. I definitely recommend it, even if you guys don't like the music that Ice Nine Kills makes. Definitely watch this video because it seems like they had a hell of a fun time making this one. And this all doesn't even go into like the meme ability of Art. As we all know in today's day and age, if you can't make memes out of something, you're just not gonna get as popular as you possibly can be. And Art is one of the most funny characters I've seen in a very long time. His emotes being probably the best part about this character. I can never get enough of his reactions to people and things that they say to him. He's just bodying every other villain when it comes to this factor, which again is very important if you want something to naturally spread. And that's kind of the story of the Terrifier. You don't need me to tell you the humble beginnings of the Terrifier, but just a reminder, Terrifier 1 was made on a budget of $35,000. That's like basically nothing in terms of movie money. Terrifier 2 was literally only possible because of a Indiegogo fundraiser. So this notion of the Terrifier franchise being an industry plant is just complete garbage. But I do understand the sentiment in the way that Art is absolutely everywhere right now. It's kind of hard to escape this guy. And again, when only clips are shared around and all you see are these gory kills, you don't really get the full scope of what the Terrifier is. Because even though the franchise takes a lot of inspiration from past horror, clearly Damien Leone is a huge fan of horror movies, I still think he's been able to craft something entirely unique with Art the Clown, and especially the vibe of these movies. Where Terrifier 3 had a $2 million budget, it still kind of has the feel of Terrifier 1 and 2. By the way, there was a Twitter comment that said that Art the Clown is basically Mr. Bean of horror movies, and I was just like, yo, like, that's actually like the perfect comparison for this character. But Art truly gets the benefit of being created after all of these classic horror movies, because for the most part, a lot of these classic characters have kind of run their course. And just to run through a few of them, I mean, do we really have to explain the place that Michael Myers is in after Halloween ends? Not only Michael Myers, but Leatherface and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. Jason's been out of the limelight for years. Freddy Krueger will never be the same without Robert Englund. The Scream franchise as well. Whatever's happening there.
Whatever happened there?
Art is now equal in movies with Pennywise, which is kind of insane. The Chucky series just got canceled, and well, I mean, yeah. The Saw series is just like never gonna end.
Nope.
And that's why I say Art truly does benefit coming after all of these guys. He pretty much has no blemishes on his record so far. And no, I'm not gonna sit here and say All Hallows Eve is a bad Art movie. That's just not fair, right? It just doesn't hit the same as like a, I don't know, Halloween Resurrection. And if the director stays true to his word when he says there's only going to be 1 or 2 more movies, it's possible that Art just never has a downfall, the same way that many of these horror villains have unfortunately suffered. It's almost like it's in the destiny of a classic horror killer to have a downward spiral in terms of qualities when it comes to their movies after a while. A big criticism on the Terrifier movies is that there's no story, but I still think that Art not having a motive and just being this Kid Buu-esque carnage-inducing monster is kind of a story in and of itself. Now, I can't exactly speak for the first movie. There's almost literally nothing there until you get to the end, but a character born of pure evil and murderous intent is kind of necessary, and there's definitely a place for characters like that, and they tend to be very interesting in many ways. And Art is catching on so quickly. It's like this natural hype building for this part 4 is truly unbelievable. Like, it's actually funny now that you have to mark where you became a fan, and luckily I actually have my first reaction to Art from years ago in one of my videos. I'm also fully expecting people to be dressing as Art the Clown and Victoria for this Halloween. I can pretty much see it a mile away. I think at this point Art's record is so clean and just so consistent that I can genuinely put him on that 4th spot. It's never gonna beat the longevity of a Michael Myers, right, or a Jason Voorhees, or narratively just the complexity of a Freddy Krueger. So to me, Art absolutely deserves that 4th spot, but I want to hear from you guys in the comments and if you agree with me or not. Now let's get into my thoughts on Terrifier 3. In a red carpet interview, Damien Leone said that this movie was going to be his Dream Warriors, that movie being my absolute favorite of all time. And while I have yet to see the movie for a second time, finding out some Easter eggs was really cool. I found out on Twitter that not only were the toys given out in the mall scene that were from Art's bag stolen from the house in the intro scene, but also the song Work of Art from Ice Nine Kills plays in the background of the dorm. But let's begin with the Christmas vibe, because right when the movie started being marketed, that's the first thing we found out. This was gonna be a Christmas movie, and that's super clever. Anytime you give a seasonal tone to something, it's like it extends its relevance and gives it a boost in rewatchability. I also heard that a lot of this movie was cut out, so the idea of re-releasing the movie during the holiday season is like genuinely a good idea, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. The shots and cinematography is just top notch. I mean, they use every bit of that $2 million budget, from the lighting and shots of Art in the dark. I remember this one scene in the beginning that stuck with me with Victoria in the bathtub shortly after she slices her arm. It's just her sitting there in the bathtub with the creak of Art's rocking chair upstairs and then that fade to black. There's just something so iconic about that. Just that imagery, that sound, I just couldn't get it out of my head. And I just want to mention it now before having to describe all of the kills and stuff like that, the practical effects. Oh man, oh, it's nasty in this movie. It'll make you flinch. It'll make you squeamish. It was just disgusting seeing every bit of bone and flesh, and oh man, they went hard with that. And I'm not gonna give a whole review of the movie. I just want to talk about a couple stuff in particular. One of those being the character of Sienna Shaw and Lauren Lavera's performance. Oh my goodness. I know this video is about Art the Clown being inducted into the horror Mount Rushmore, but man, if there is one argument that absolutely nobody can have a rebuttal for, Sienna Shaw as a top final girl in horror history, it should be non-debatable at this point. The way that Lauren Lavera just sells that PTSD, that dinner scene is just intense. That scene alone probably got me more jumping than any other scene in this movie. The scene with the podcast girl where she comes up to Sienna and asks her how she's coping, and just the crash out that ensues following that. This character is everything you want. Not just a final girl, just a main character. Like, she is it. She has the charisma. She has just about everything. We'll get into Sienna some more as we talk about the other characters, but now let's talk a little bit about Victoria Hayes. I don't think I expected this character to have such a big role in this movie, and so I was pretty surprised, especially in the intro scene where she's just kind of chilling with Art. That scene with Victoria, by the way, yeah, No, just no. Nope. I think at this point it's pretty clear that the spirit that was the pale girl in Terrifier 2 is now possessing Victoria. While I could see a lot of people were kind of annoyed with this character, I wasn't. I kind of enjoyed her presence, but I guess that's a pretty good segue to talk about the things I'm still a bit iffy on when it comes to this movie. Gabrielle being a character that I can see a lot of people disliking. Maybe she's a little too excited to see her cousin, maybe a bit on the annoying side even, and definitely towards the beginning of the movie she does kind of get on your nerves a little bit, but the things that they set up with her snooping into gifts early and looking into floorboards and stuff like that, that does come around in the end, so she does serve her purpose, but she does kind of become the catalyst for our main character. Our mission now is to save Gabrielle, and that's kind of it. As I've only watched this movie one time, I did feel like the pacing was pretty solid, but I can understand the pacing being a bit too long, maybe a couple things needing to be edited out. I'd have to watch it a couple more times to really confirm this, but this isn't a short movie. It's definitely among the longer ones, and the director has already expressed making the future one shorter, so definitely has his ear to the fans and wants to make the experience better in the movies to come. One of the bigger things in this movie is the fact that Art takes about a 5-year nap, which is I guess is pretty confusing. Maybe, I mean, he needed to recover after pretty much losing the fight, but 5 years is a bit weird of a time to finally wake up. You're telling me nobody in the 5 Halloweens that passed, nobody went into Art's house, and even though there's rumors and stuff around this building, like the guys who came into work said, I find that pretty hard to believe, right? I don't really know about that one too much. Also, Art walks into the frat party just not noticed, right? He kind of holds the door open for the 2 guys walking in, which is pretty funny because he's literally known in this world, right? Like he's literally known in Miles County as the Miles County Killer, and they're just kind of ignoring him now. Of course, we can chalk that up to, oh, these college kids are just stoned, they're off something, but I don't really know if I'm gonna give that one a pass. That's a little weird how he's just able to walk in without really anything, right? He just drove up and nobody questioned the car outside, nobody did anything, and soon we'll be getting into the ending scene, but we don't exactly know what's healing Sienna. My theory is that the healing only activates when she's near death, holding the sword, or the sword itself does not give her the healing properties. It's more of she's protected by the divine, right? And she can only activate that protection when she absolutely needs it. But yeah, we don't really know how that happened to her because she technically should have healed during that last battle. And before we talk about the ending, let's talk about Art the Clown, the simple complexity of this character. The mission of Damien Leone in this movie had to be to step up the humor and really make Art so charismatic while at the same time extremely villainous, of course, with him killing the kids and all. But man, like, why does Art wash his hands when he's about to go kill somebody? It's like the most funniest low-key thing. I absolutely love Art in this movie, and it sucks, right? Because this is no question the most villainous Art has ever been, and he still manages to just make you laugh. He still manages to get you on his side a little bit because of how funny and charismatic he is. The bar scene is pure gold. Probably the funniest Art the Clown scene of all time. The intro when he's eating the milk and cookies and he gives a little shoulder shake is just too good, man. I don't understand it. David Howard Thornton absolutely has mastered this character. He has fully realized Art the Clown in his absolute peak. From the looks that he gives these certain characters to the little mannerisms he does with his body, it's so clever, it's so good. I can't even really give you a favorite scene from this movie with Art. From the intro scene to waking up and he sleeps with his eyes open with a smile. It's just like, this is what I mean when I say that they've crafted somebody so specific and so unique that even though they're paying homage to so many other horror killers and horror movies, like in the beginning you have the axe through the door and then he does the little Shining, the Here's Johnny. Obviously, the shower scene is a whole ode to Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All of these things just feel so specific to Art and his character and his method of having fun with what he's doing and being so cruel, also being so smart, right? He's very, very tactical with his kills, which is absolutely horrifying. at the mall, right? He's like gifting a bomb surprise to everybody at the bar with the liquid nitrogen gun, chainsaw. Like, where the hell is he getting these things? He's a very tactical and strategic monster. Even though he's using these tangible things that any human can use, it just feels like he's on a level above, and just his cruelty was genuinely stepped up to another level in this movie. And now to get into the ending, a lot of people didn't like that Victoria kind of acted as the mouthpiece for the entire situation, right? She's kind of taunting Sienna throughout the entire thing, but in my opinion, it kind of gives her that sub-boss feel. She's kind of the second adversary that we have to take down before the big guy, and that's why I love this movie, right? We know that our battle with Art is not done yet, and Sienna has levels that she needs to dig even deeper for, so I like that Victoria served as this final boss before the true final boss. You know what I mean? By the way, Art smacking Sienna's head like every 10 seconds just reminded me of Green Goblin smacking Spider-Man's head in Spider-Man 1. Super hilarious and oddly super in character for Art to be taunting Sienna like that. And I like that things come back around during this final battle. You know, Victoria earlier had been seen crafting the crown of thorns that she then puts on Sienna's head to wear during the final battle. She's also sewing the Terrifier costume that she uses during that final scene, and just that entire thing, right? A lot of people say that the Terrifier has no story behind it, but that biblical kind of ascension of Sienna and just that transformation that she's going through is very evident in that last scene. There's no reading between the lines. She is this godly figure, especially throughout the movie. They go into her past and what her father was going through when he was thinking of this character for her and the chosen one that Sienna really is, you know, in this entire narrative. But yeah, let's talk about that rat kill. I mean, this has gotta be the most cruel. I think at this moment, something happened for the first time that I haven't felt at all throughout watching all of these movies. I think I genuinely wanted Art to suffer. Like, I wanted him to actually die for this one. That was just too much. It was just brutal and disgusting and inhumane. It is truly one of the worst things I'd ever seen, and just making Sienna watch that's like Griffith level. Like, that's Griffith level, man. That was, oh my god. And Damien Leone talks in a few interviews about how he almost wanted to introduce the character of Art, because over the years it's like we've gotten comfortable with seeing this character, and he kind of wanted to take away our comfortability with him and truly make him a villain. And I say he succeeded, because there is just so many cruel things that Art does in this movie, especially to kind of people who we really didn't want them to die, right? Like the guy in the bar who's pleading for his life, Sienna's aunt, Jonathan's roommate. There's just so many things that Art does here to make us want him to lose, and I love that. I absolutely love that the movie finally got me to root against the horror killer for once. That almost never happens throughout these movies, and I'm finally glad that I got to feel that in this last scene. Sienna goes on to basically kind of lose this battle, even though she defeated Victoria. Art gets away, Gabrielle is now gone. Sienna then gets healed after the fact, and the movie ends on Art basically taking a bus while looking pretty defeated. Even though he made it out alive, it seems like he just barely got out. Now we end with our main hero and villain tied 1-1, and we're gonna need that next movie to settle the score between these two. And here's where we talk about part 4 and a possible part 5. This ending genuinely does remind me of like an Empire Strikes Back, because Sienna basically has nothing left. Even though she does get healed, unlike Luke, who loses his hand, she needs to rescue Gabrielle and kind of find the answers to see if that skull really was her brother or not, because it's very misleading, right? We kind of don't know. I think they left it open ending for a reason. And again, like Empire Strikes Back, the villain pretty much wins this one, and there's no other way around it. We're definitely going to be going to hell at some point in this franchise, which is not new to horror movies whatsoever. Very classical thing to do here. Terrifier Part 4, Art Goes to Hell, something like that, or the death of Art the Clown. Honestly, I'm not sure if you need a second movie to kind of tell the end of this narrative. Even though Damien Leone has talked about how epic this finale will really be, I'm expecting we see something like Sienna's final transformation, how she finally becomes this Valkyrie queen. We can definitely expect an insane budget next time around. Honestly, great news, because if the practical effects were great here, oh man, I mean, they're gonna be unbelievable for this next movie, and I expect the story to be much more fleshed out. A lot of the big criticisms of this franchise is that there isn't much of a story here, but I think that there's so much, right? The biblical layers, the backstory of Art the Clown, right? We really don't know too much about him and what he was like before all of this, and I don't blame people for not wanting the supernatural elements that all of these things bring, because we've kind of run our course with supernatural stuff like that, right? There's only so much you can do when you get to the supernatural and the realm of hell and what that really means. But I think I trust Damien Leone with the creative direction that he wants with this. I think it's all being introduced in a very understandable manner. I think it gets to a point where it can be a little bit too much, but I personally don't think it's reached that threshold just yet. I think it's just before that. Even though I think Terrifier 3 hit a very good medium of telling us more of the lore, giving us more puzzle pieces, and aside from that one scene in the little church, they're not exactly spelling it all out for us, which I very much appreciate. I almost really like the fact that we don't know everything. I kind of don't need to know everything, because there's part of the mystique of Art the Clown. We don't know anything about him, and I think that's what makes him so interesting and so captivating. That mystery surrounding this character is kind of the same mystery that surrounds a Michael Myers, right? A Freddy Krueger or a Jason, and that's why I put him up there with those guys. He's gonna have that aura for a long time. But comment down below your thoughts on all of this. What do you think about Art the Clown and his place in horror, and what this character will mean down in the years to come? Will he stand the test of time? Is he just a popular thing at the moment? Is he gonna run the gauntlet and eventually truly beat all of these guys on the list? I think he already has, in my opinion, of course. I would love to know who's on you guys' horror Mount Rushmore as well, and definitely expect more videos like this in the future. Like the video, share it, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Villains. Hope you enjoyed your stay, and farewell.